Today I will be presenting to you my two books that I decided to do for my book fair, which were A Complicated Kindness and She's Come Undone. First, I will start by describing both of the books to you. So I'll start with A Complicated Kindness by Miriam Toews. This is a book about a girl named Naomi who grows up in a Mennonite community, and the readers experience with her all of her, as she grows up, her troubles that she experiences living in that kind of culture, and how eventually she gets out of that culture after experiencing all the negative impacts it had on her and her family. And She's Come Undone is basically, the title explains itself. It's about a girl named Dolores Price who basically throughout the novel she comes undone. She experiences a lot of guilt, shame, blame in her life, and she goes through basically coming of age and figuring out how to live life properly and normally, and she goes through a lot of different difficult decisions and situations in her life that lead her to eventually coming undone, but she's able to rebuild her life periodically throughout the novel, and we see how she goes through her up and downs. Now, I chose these novels because they have a similar theme, which would be coming of age and also family matters and family situations. Now, this is what would represent both of the novels kind of coming together, as we can see with the pink and the blue kind of merging, and then this would be all of the two stories coming together and their main theme. So the main theme would be coming of age, in which I represented here by the growing of this girl, and also father figures had a big impact on both characters in these books, father to their daughter. And so I decided to add a father when the girl is young, a father still there when the girl is starting to come of age, and then once she's a woman, he is gone. Now, that in both stories, the father had a big impact on both characters. Now, first, they happened in a similar type of way, but the impact it had on both these girls were very different, and the situations were very different. So they both had to do with the father leaving eventually. But for Dolores, her father left in a negative way. He almost abandoned her and her mother, leaving a very negative impact on her as she grew older. And for Naomi, her father left her basically so that she could be free, but it also left a negative impact on her because she didn't have a father in her life that like she did when she was growing older. And also, mid-stage through her life, she could feel her father distancing away from her because her father was having negative emotions over losing his wife and other daughter other than Naomi, and Naomi could kind of feel that distance, and then eventually he left so that Naomi wouldn't feel like she had to be in the Mennonite community to keep her dad happy. So he kind of made a sacrifice for Naomi, and Naomi realized that, but losing her father had a big impact on her. So now when we separate the two books, they both have different symbolism that was very different from each other, showing different parts of the book. So we'll start with She Comes Undone. Here we have water, a humpback whale, and the flying leg, which is a very main part, even though it doesn't seem to make sense here. It's a very main part in the book, and I will explain that in a few moments. But first I will start with the water, which is a very big symbol in She's Come Undone, since a lot of the stages of life that Dolores goes through, water shows up a lot. Like when her dad is still with her, they go swimming in their pool. That's a big symbol of her dad swimming in that pool. She remembers that. And then again, water comes up when she's with her psychiatrist after a lot of things had happened. Her mother's died, her grandmother's died. She's with her psychiatrist, Dr. Shaw, and he suggests going into the pool to kind of relive her father's experience and also kind of recreate her life once again in that pool. And she always imagines water in the pool in a positive way. Now, the whale, who is an aquatic animal, is kind of represents Dolores as a person because she sees herself as a whale. She represents herself as a whale, and whales show up quite a lot throughout the book. We see Dolores after she runs away from her college. She goes to see whales, and she ends up wanting to kill herself next to a whale, but instead she just falls asleep next to the dead whale. So she kind of sees herself as this big creature in life. Almost, you could say whales have been seen as fat, so she sees herself as overweight. And also, but once the book ends, she sees whales in a positive light, and she wants to go whale watching instead of seeing them as these big ugly creatures. She sees them positively as these big magnificent creatures. So you could see in the middle of the novel she had this negative light over whales. She wanted to see a dead one. She didn't like them. She thought they were ugly just like her. She thought they represented her. And then by the end of the book she was like, no, I want to see a whale to see them in their habitat, see them jumping. I want to go whale watching. So you can see kind of the way she saw herself kind of represented the way she saw whales. And then as we come up to the flying leg, this flying leg would represent her mother, because after her dad left her, her mother went a little bit insane and had to go into a mental hospital to regain herself again. And while she was in that mental hospital, she painted a flying leg and sent it to Dolores. Now, the flying leg not only represents her mother, but it represents kind of her mother's becoming sane again. It's kind of this flying leg. It makes no sense, but the way it was painted was just beautifully inspiring to Dolores, and Dolores kept that painting way past when it was painted into after her mother died. And once someone found it and ripped it up, destroying it, Dolores kept those pieces as a way, it almost represented her mother for her. And the way we saw the leg in the book represented how Dolores saw her mother, which was she cherished it and she kept it wherever she went. She kept it through college, through her adult life. She even re-glued it back together, almost like re-gluing her relationship with her mother after she died, because they had a strained relationship, and it was kind of like when the picture got ripped apart, it kind of represented that strained marriage. And then Dolores went into therapy, kind of regaining back the relationship with her mother. Even though she was passed away, she was still able to have a positive look on her mother. And then when she glued it back together, we could see that their relationship was glued, and Dolores saw it in a positive light rather than ripped up in a negative light. So those are the symbolisms in She's Come Undone. And then we will move on to A Complicated Kindness. Now, A Complicated Kindness, there isn't a few symbols that I could add here, but there was one main symbol I wanted to focus on, and that was the slaughterhouse. Now, in A Complicated Kindness, the Mennonites that lived in that community all kind of were expected to work at this slaughterhouse. That was their way of income. That's when you grew up, you worked in the slaughterhouse, and that was that's what you looked forward to until death. That was what you did. That is what you learned for. That was what you did, to work in this slaughterhouse, to kill these chickens until death. And in the Mennonite religion, they're waiting for death, because they think after death, God is going to take you into his arms. That's where the best life is going to be. That's like better life. So Mennonites basically believe that they're on this earth just to die. So I kind of represented that with the chickens in the gate getting ready to die, because in the slaughterhouse, that's basically what the chickens are doing. All they are is to be there for the food of the Mennonites, and they're there basically to die. So here, the chickens represent the Mennonite religion, or the Mennonites, and the girl standing here with the axe represents the Mennonite religion, who's going to, basically, they are just waiting for the Mennonite religion to take their lives. And then up here, if we look up here, we see two chickens flying. Now, it's said that chickens aren't ones who can fly high, but Mennonites are said that they can't leave the Mennonite religion, and that is where they stay. But in the book, Nomi and her father, and also her whole family, ends up leaving the Mennonite religion where they think they're going to be stuck because that is where they grew up. That was what they were born into. They had no other choice. Otherwise, they would be shunned by the rest of their family. But together, they all flew away from that inevitable death. And their whole picture of life was death. That's all they thought about, all they talked about. Death is when you will be taken away to the happy place. But instead, Naomi always questioned why that was like that. Why aren't they enjoying life while they're here? So here represented are the Mennonites, convinced that they're just waiting for death. That's death there. And then Naomi and her family flying away from that. Here we have flying chickens, which are said to be almost impossible. They can't fly that high. They can only flutter and jump. Just like Mennonites aren't able to leave that religion without negative impact on them. But Naomi and her father and her mother and her sister were all able to leave. Yes, they were broken away from their family, but inside they were probably most happiest with their life after leaving the entrapment of that religion. And so, this is my book fair project. I hope you enjoyed my take on both of these books. Just to recap, this would be the growing up of the girls and their families / father leaving them and being alone. This would be the whale, represented as Dolores, the water, represented as her positive feelings towards water, leg being her mother, chicken coop being the Mennonite religion, chickens being the Mennonites, this being death and also the Mennonite religion, and then the flying chickens being Naomi and her family, flying into the sky away from the entrapment of the Mennonite culture. Thank you, and have a nice day.